good afternoon. Welcome along to the Audere Academy in Conversation with, and for all our listeners on the Actors Toolkit podcast, welcome along to you too. Today we are joined by the lovely Emily Dean. Emily, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad at all, not too bad. Really busy day today, but excited to get on with this interview.
Oh, that's good. Good to hear.
Fantastic. So first of all, do you want to tell us, who is Emily Dean?
Who's Emily Dean? Yeah, that's a tricky one.
It's an ominous question, isn't it?
Well, I'm originally from Suffolk, and I think I was one of the unique people that kind of knew what they wanted to get into when they left school, and I had a passion and love for media and the arts. So I actually my background is actually music. I actually studied and worked in various recording studios, and I sort of moved to London, and when I moved to London I went to study music, and part of the course was to learn about sound recording, and also music law as well, which has actually been quite handy, sort of being able to read contracts and things like that. So yeah, and then from then I kind of started working for a music licensing company back in sort of the late 90s, when people were sort of investing in the .com companies, which I really enjoyed, and that was kind of licensing music for advertising and TV and films and games. So and then alongside that I was managing various bands and performers, and kind of decided that I really enjoyed sort of looking after the artists and helping them achieve their dreams, and that became my passion really. So it's been a bit of a wonky sort of way to get there, but that's where I am today, as it were.
Yeah, and how did you get into being an agent?
Yeah, so that kind of came from I was managing a steampunk rapper called Professor Elemental at the time, alongside when I was working for the music licensing company, and he'd got some voiceover work with Disney, and really enjoyed it, and was sort of saying, I really want to get more voiceover work. Can you help me? And unlike, most people probably go, oh no, let's Google some voiceover agents and try and get you on their books. I decided actually it would work quite well if I started an agency, because through working with this music licensing company, it was a very sort of similar process in terms of, the client base was very similar. People who wanted to license music would be the kind of people that would want to license voices as well, and the whole kind of negotiation process as well, with relation to negotiating the fees is very similar to how you would negotiate for music sync as well. So that's how it started really, and so that's when I launched Voicefox.
Yeah, so Voicefox, tell us all about that.
So I started, it's about 7 years, just over 7 years ago now, I'm based in Brighton, and strangely, I'm the only voiceover agency in Brighton, so it became quite successful quite quickly because of that fact. And so yeah, I've been sort of running it now for just over seven years, and we started out just representing actors for voiceover, and then recently we're now representing actors for motion and performance capture, which was kind of something that I about 3 years ago, basically, I started another agency. You tell me I'm a bit of an entrepreneur here, and that was basically just literally solely representing actors and performers for motion and performance capture. And again, that came out of a conversation with an actor who had worked for quite a big game as a lead character, doing some mocap for them, and really wanted to get into that side of things a bit more. But then when he went to try and find out how to get more work in that field, he found it really tricky. There was no other agents out there that were doing it, and what part of the things that I like to do, part of my passion is helping performers achieve their dreams. And so I kind of wanted to help not only get the work for the performers, but also make sure that when they do get the work, that they're being paid fairly and they're not sort of signing away all their rights. And which had actually happened to this guy as well, where he just he'd signed this agreement, which actually was full performance capture, including likeness, buyout forever. And then obviously, a few years later found himself selling noodles in Vietnam or something, but I had no idea about it and obviously hadn't been paid. So it's just, it became important for me to make sure that people were, aware of what they were signing.
Yeah, and you work with the lovely Susie. How do you two work as a team?
Yeah, no, Susie's great. She's amazing actually. And I don't know, as you know, that when you've kind of started up your own company from the ground up, it's very hard to then delegate or to bring somebody else into the fold, because it's just you get into a way of working, and it's very hard to kind of I don't know, train somebody up to be able to know exactly what you would do in each situation. But Susie came along, and it came from I mean, I've been representing her as a voiceover artist for quite a long time. She's a Brazilian voiceover artist, and she basically sorry about that, she used to help me. So occasionally I'd get castings for performers of a language that I didn't actually have maybe on the roster. I wanted to get some more options across. So I would usually ask her, and because she's been in the industry for over 25 years, and she's got a very good sort of network of foreign voices as friends and colleagues. So yeah, she used to basically say, oh yeah, check out this person, and eventually I thought, you're doing this for free, I should be paying you actually. And so I kind of brought her on as my Foxy foreign voice specialist. And yeah, she's sort of been with me now for probably about a year and a half, 2 years, I think. But yeah, she's amazing. I don't know where I'd be without her now. She's really cool.
Great. So for those listeners that don't know what motion capture and performance capture are, can you explain what the differences are between them?
Yeah, so mocap, well, basically it started with mocap. It's a bit of tech basically, which basically tracks and records your movement digitally. So mocap is more about recording the bigger movements of a performer. So if you're wanting a character to climb up a wall like Spider-Man, you'd be looking for someone who can be really good at parkour, for example, and then they would be suited up with markers and basically, that's kind of capturing the bigger movements. That's mocap. And then performance capture is basically the bigger movements, but also including fingers and facial expressions, and sometimes voice as well, which is full performance capture. And it's more kind of capturing the actor performing, and also picking up all this sort of the nuances in a little bit more detail than the bigger movements, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah. And is motion capture easy to get into? I mean, do you need a lot of training or?
It is quite hard to get into, and that's kind of why I started the agency, started representing performers for motion performance capture, because when I sort of noticed that a lot of the studios were sort of using a handful of performers that obviously they knew and trusted, because it doesn't really matter what you look like, because unless they're doing like a full likeness scan, as long as they're the right height and they've got the right skill set and they can act, they tended to use the same people. However, having said that, I have seen a change in the way that things are being cast. And also because there's not that many casting directors that specialize in motion performance capture, so having castings on Spotlight is quite rare. I mean, they do come up and they're actually getting more and more, but it's more about connections and contacts and contacting the companies rather than using sort of Spotlight as your main kind of casting tool. But in terms of like the performer, you don't necessarily have to have training. In fact, I have actually got people work who haven't had any training before, but I just thought they're an amazing actor and they had the right skill set and they were right height and build,
Mm.
and they were fine. I mean, I think it's handy to have, because obviously it takes that kind of mystery away, and also when you're in the volume or in the studio, you don't have to worry so much and you can concentrate on what you're doing. Also, that people generally, I guess, they do like to have a performer that has had some kind of experience. So obviously training gives you that experience within the volume. And so and there are a lot of training courses now that you end up with a kind of a mocap reel at the end of it, which is also quite handy to sort of send to clients so they can kind of see how you move.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not essential to have training, but I would recommend it, especially, if an actor really, really wants to get into that world.
Mm.
I would recommend it. Maybe, even just doing like an introductory course so you have that experience in the volume will definitely help.
I've heard this phrase "in the volume" before. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I kind of say it now as I expecting everyone else to know. I'm so sorry. It's basically just the studio basically where they're performing. That's, yeah, it's called the volume.
The volume, right? Okay, cool. Excellent. Right. So how does being an agent for voice actors differ from being an agent for mocap performers? Are there two different types of representation, or are they sort of similar? Or
Yeah, I mean, what for voice and mocap,
yeah.
yeah.
So obviously you represent actors that work in the voice world, and actors who just work in the performance capture world.
Yeah.
How does the representation sort of differ for those two?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, they do cross over quite nicely. And I think that now, Voicefox, because I've been kind of working in that field for quite some time now, it's kind of become a little bit of the go-to agency for gaming. And because of that, they do cross over. So, something that may start out as just a voiceover job initially can then turn into like a performance capture role.
Mhm.
And so they do cross over in that sense. But yeah, obviously, it's a slightly different kind of negotiation process with the rates, and the agreements will be different because obviously you've got to look out for certain things,
Yeah.
especially, like I said, mentioned earlier about the likeness and stuff, which you don't have to really worry about with voice. So yeah, that's kind of the differences, I guess.
Yeah, and with the success of films like Avatar and things like that, where most of the action is performance capture, do you reckon mocap is the future for actors? Do you reckon in 20 years' time we're not even going to need actors anymore?
No, yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah, we will always need actors, and actually, and mocap, all it is another kind of a revenue for an actor, to be able to perform, have their movement and their performance captured. So it's just it's another revenue stream really for the actor. So it will never replace sort of traditional acting, but you are, as an actor, you're still doing traditional acting. It's just the tech is capturing you in a different way, if that makes sense.
yeah. I've just thought of another question off the back of that. If what do you think is the future with AI becoming so prevalent in today's society and every realm of society? How do you think that AI is going to affect the industry in the future?
Yeah, it's a tricky one actually. I was actually on a panel last week talking about it.
Mhm.
And it's quite hard to, we're all sort of panicking a little bit, especially with where voiceover is concerned,
Yeah.
because potentially it could result in no one wanting an actor to do voiceover anymore. But I kind of don't think it will get to that. I think we're kind of like panicking a little bit. I think maybe it will take away some of the smaller jobs, especially things like e-learning.
Mhm.
Although having said that, a lot of the e-learning scripts that we get are a lot more kind of sort of role play, kind of actor based stuff now rather than dry text. So because of that, it might not actually happen, but yeah, I kind of envisage those kind of the low end of voiceover. But then I kind of think you know, for advertising, for example, I don't think, you know, big brands are going to be wanting to, I may be wrong, but you know, to use AI to voice their advert, because even though, you know, you may not be able to tell the difference, I think psychologically they will feel that they're sort of cheapening their brand.
Mhm.
And also, if you look at the history actually of you know, these kind of scary moments where all of a sudden tech is taking over. I remember, like, you know, in the late 80s when CDs were, you know, coming out, it's like, oh, it's going to be the death of vinyl, and it was like, you know, and okay, it might have been for a little while, but actually, you know, looking at the album vinyl sales last year, they're actually pretty high. So I kind of think that it's going to shake things up a little bit,
Okay.
but I'm hopeful that it won't take over completely.
Won't
And
it? Okay, yeah.
no, and especially with gaming as well, where you're, you know, the director wants to be able to, you know, direct the performer, and
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of the time, you know, they're performing from real life sort of emotions and events that they've had, where AI doesn't have that. So
Yeah, so there's no connection with it. Yeah.
it's not going to be as authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Right. If I was an actor and I decided that I wanted to work in voice work, if I wanted to, how would I go about making up a voice reel? What aspects make up a good voice reel?
Yeah, well, it kind of depends what reel you're making, because it kind of changes a little bit.
Mhm.
I always recommend people to have a commercial reel to start with, and the commercial reel is usually your own voice, so it's really important to not, you know, mess around with accents on that. Just have you and your voice demonstrated. It shouldn't really be any longer than sort of about a minute and a half, and you want to show a good range within that minute and a half if you can. So
Mhm.
so, you know, with an upbeat commercial, and then maybe a more sort of, I mean, you don't get really sad commercials, but something maybe a little more thoughtful behind it, and just try and get as many kind of styles within that reel. And then you've got, and then if you know, if you want to get into gaming, and then, you know, I recommend getting a gaming reel, which is a little bit different, because you want to basically show how versatile you are,
Mhm.
and sort of, and that's where you can sort of play around with all the accents that you're highly skilled at. Again, it shouldn't be too long, not really longer than a minute and a half. But yeah, just really thinking about what kind of characters, you know, you would be, or you think that you might be up for, in terms of, like, you know, being cast. And then, you know, I always recommend trying to find a good production company. Don't try and make a reel yourself, although I have had some, actually I do represent some voices who actually do, and they sound great, but not everyone's do. And so I
Yeah.
kind of recommend, you know, finding somebody who works with a copywriter, and they can write scripts specifically for you rather than off the peg, and then you know that you've got a unique reel that no one else has got with the same scripts. So yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, that's it really.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So, as an agent, what's your one golden rule when representing actors?
Well, in terms of what? In terms
Well,
of
I have a motto as an agent, and my motto would be never give a client bad news unless you have some good news to perk them up afterwards.
oh, that's
So,
not.
what would be? Do you have like a motto that you live by when you're working as an agent, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I kind of, I like to talk to my actors in
Mhm.
terms of, you know, I know that it's really, really busy being an agent, but I think it's really, really important to talk. And, you know, even, you know, if it's like a quick catch up or something, but I kind of think it also helps to sort of, you know, refresh the kind of, you know, where they are in their career, and help them going forward. And I also, you know, it's really hard being an actor, and I always think of it as, it's a bit like having bipolar, you know, it's a very up and down, not great for mental health. And so,
Mhm.
you know, and because of that, you know, I always kind of say to them, I think it's really, really important to try and look back to where you were 5 years ago and all you've achieved, because I think, you know, a lot of people make the mistake of just sort of not really thinking about it, and they might just have a really bad audition, and then they just keep thinking about that and getting quite, down, and if they keep getting knockbacks. But I think it's really important to chat to them, and talk about their successes. And I'd say my one golden rule is to chat to the people that you represent and cheer them up when they're feeling down.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Right. So you say you've had Voicefox for 7 years. What notice? What notice? What changes have you noticed in the industry? So obviously you work in speciality parts of the industry with being a voice agent and motion capture. What changes have you noticed in the time that you've been an agent?
Well, with mocap, I've seen a change, even in the short time that I've been doing it, because I think the way that it's being cast in terms of ethically as well, which I think is really important. And yeah, before I think it was very much like I said, the studios were using the same pool of people, as long as they're the right height and they've got the right skill set. But now they are looking to see what ethnicity they are, and so they're broadening it out, which is great to see. And in terms of voice, it's a tricky one really, because I think when Voicefox sort of started out, I wasn't so heavily into gaming. I did a bit of gaming, but I mean, we do other stuff. It's not just gaming, but because of that, I can say how it's changed for me. I'm getting a lot more kind of gaming briefs, and so yeah, and then you've got rates have gone up, which is great over the 7 years. Yeah, they're kind of the main changes really. And obviously you've now got AI, which is like we've sort of mentioned before, which is maybe ask me the question again in about 3 years. I might be completely
See where
different.
we're at. Yeah. Okay, this is a question that we ask everybody that we interview. If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be and why?
I think it would probably be agents talking to each other more. Because I think that me and you have actually got quite a nice relationship in the terms that, but it's quite rare, to be honest, and I don't really know why that is. I've spoken to quite a lot of agents, because when I first started representing performers for motion performance captures, I wanted to talk to the agents to make sure that I wasn't stepping on their toes, and making sure that they were 100% happy. But yeah, I just in terms of that, I spoke to them and then that's it really. But it's a shame that the agents don't kind of talk a bit more, and
It is a shame. Everybody seems to be in competition, and we noticed when we recently joined the PMA that it's not like that in the PMA. Nobody's competing with each other. We're all kind of there to support each other and work with each other. But before we joined the PMA, it just seemed that it was very competitive, and nobody wanted to give you advice or anything. And they say when you're starting out a new business, that's the main thing you need is copy the people who are doing well. Ask them for advice and learn from them. But like you say, as an agent, it seems very closed off for some reason.
I don't know why that is, but I'd prefer to talk and have a little social with other agents. That's what I'd like to see. But
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, because we can help each other in the end. What is the best part of your job?
The best part of my job is, and it's where my passion lies, is literally helping performers achieve their dreams. That's literally it. I get very excited when I've got like a really, really cool job for a performer, and I will phone them up. I'm that excited. Just kind of that is literally why I do it.
Yeah, it's for me, that would be exactly the same answer. Getting to phone actors and tell them that they've got the job is literally the best part of the job. And last question, if you could give actors one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I think I kind of sort of answered that a little bit. I don't know if it's tricky, isn't it? One bit of advice. I sort of was mentioned about, try and look back a little bit of all you've achieved, rather than, thinking you were just as good as the last audition that you did. I think it's really important to reflect on how far you've come in a period of time, and I think you'd be amazed. But people don't do that enough. They're always like, oh, what's the next thing? And I think that's really important.
Mhm. I think a lot of actors get envy as well. They see other people doing well, and then they automatically feel bad because they feel that they aren't. But like you say, if you look over your successes and the things that you've done, you maybe realize that you are actually doing a lot better than you thought you were.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that will drive you forward as well if you do that.
Mhm. Awesome. Okay, I'll just add one extra question in the end. What do you think's the future for Voicefox? Where do you see it going?
Um, well, I'm really, really pleased with how it's going,
Mhm.
in terms of, becoming like almost like a one-stop shop for your gaming requirements.
Right.
I'd like to kind of, yeah, develop on that, because that's kind of quite a new thing. I only really, because before obviously I had the mocap agency, and it's only, yeah, probably about 6 months since I started having it all under one roof, under Voicefox.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of liking how that's going in terms of being able to talk to clients and saying, oh, you're doing the voices, how about, you're doing the mocap, who's doing that, and sort of cross-selling between the two. So I want
Mhm.
to kind of continue down that line, really.
Yeah, because like you say, there are roles for everybody in motion capture. But
Yeah,
it's good if you're a voice artist specifically, you can branch into the other. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
fantastic, excellent. Okay, so Emily, if people wanted to find you, what are your social media handles? Have you got a website? Where can they find out more about VoiceFox?
Yeah, so the website is voicefox.co.uk.
Okay.
And then I don't even know what my handles are. You see, oh, it's bad, isn't it? I think on Instagram it's voicefox underscore agency or something like that. That's bad.
Okay.
I don't know. What are my handles? Jamie, don't ask me this.
Sorry, I sprung that one on you then.
Okay. So Twitter is yeah, voicefox underscore agency.
Perfect.
And yeah, I think Instagram is voicefox. Oh no, actually, hang on a second. Voicefox underscore voicefox underscore voiceover underscore agency. It's a bit of a weird one. I think it's because someone else has got Voicefox, but yeah, there you go. That's where
There
you
we
can.
go. Perfect. Well, Emily, it's been an absolute pleasure. Glad we managed to get this interview done with a few technical hitches trying to do it the first time. But thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for all your great insight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
No problem at all. Thanks.